Andromeda and Gem is now what is the audience telling me they like, not what performed this week.
What do I want to force performance on?
Exactly right. Is it spending and achieving the goal I wanted to achieve to my business goal rather than the CPA inside of Meta that week? What we've been doing lately as a whole, with media buying, I mean, at tier level with media buying and the creative that we're going to be producing, is starting to look at the ad spend and the engagement and the conversions in a slightly different sense. And I think one of the things that becomes difficult for most media buyers, marketers, companies, agencies, whatever it is, or even the creative teams, is what's working. Like, what do people like? That kind of thing. And a lot of times we base a lot of emphasis on, well, look at how many conversions there are and what is the conversion rate and the cost per conversion, et cetera. And we started to take a look at it in a different light. I think, I forget the person who kind of said it best or kind of coined this strategy in your brain. But when you do everything the same way every single day, time speeds up, because you're doing the same mundane task and you're not necessarily identifying new or different or creative ways to solve different problems. So taking a different way to work, or going to walk in around the neighborhood like in a different direction, or rather than playing basketball today, you do tennis, like something that is different and new throughout your normal mundane task. And I think that with the Andromeda and Gem framework, sometimes we fall into it's the same kind of mundane tasks that we're going to do. What's the CPA? Those are expensive. Pause those. I'm done for the day. Mm-hmm. That part now just does not work. So we sort of have to take a look at things in two different lights. And give me actually just one quick second. Everybody, I have to open my door for my dog so he can let out.
Yeah, and I think what John is gearing towards here is like one of our more popular episodes that we've done in the past is this idea of pausing ads. Like, stop pausing your underperforming ads, because that isn't necessarily the way to success with the Meta and or Gem and or a Lattice update, however you want to say it. But basically everything's shifted in the last year in how you did media buying 2, 3, 4 years ago. Like I was telling you about, like this minimize, maximize, optimize worksheet that we used to have. We called it the MMO checklist. And, like if your ad in the last 7 days doesn't have a conversion for whatever it is that you're trying to get the conversion for, you need to pause it. And if your ad all of a sudden stops getting conversions, like it was like your best performing ad, and then all of a sudden it stops getting conversions, check your landing page to make sure that you have like a buy button on there. It was like such stupidly simple, like step-by-step stuff. And I found it the other day. I'm like, oh my God, this is all completely outdated. With the exception of, if you stop getting conversions 0 for all your ads, you might want to check your landing page to see if the button is on there. And that did happen more than once, by the way.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Or remember when like chatbots were coming out and they were like covering the buy now button?
Yeah, right.
All of a sudden you're like, all right, begin checkout, and the pop-up's like, hey, it looks like you have trouble checking out. It's like, I do because of you.
Yeah, I know. And I was talking to a friend of mine this morning who I get on calls with every once in a month. He's actually a referral partner for Tier 11, super sharp guy in Serbia. And he's like, the first thing that I ever do, like whenever I do like a website audit, is I say, take out your phone, try and buy something on your website. And he's like, 9 times out of 10, they're like, how do I actually do this? He's like, there you go. And they're like, I closed the sale. Yeah. So it's stupid stuff like that I think we all want to learn the latest trick. We all want to learn like what John Moran's doing, like what's he cooking up in the ad lab. But a lot of this is going back to kind of basics too, like acting like your own customer, going to your website on a mobile device, maybe not on your iPhone, but like if you're with somebody who has an Android, like trying it over there too. The point is this, is that those things are a base level foundation, but how we manage ads has radically changed. So stop pausing your underperformers. And that's what we're going to get into here today with a little bit of more like some Google stuff, maybe.
Yeah.
Google in a while.
Which is cool, because pausing the non-performers, then we're going to look at a first click versus non-first click, new customer only, how that actually affected the Google Ads platform and why you sometimes get tricked. So it's beautiful, beautiful stuff. I love this stuff.
Right. This is very, very cool. And when I say non-performers, I should air quote that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Relative. So anyway, so that's what we're going to talk about today. So excited about this one.
Let's do it. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in and share screen. And we're going to start with the typical way that we would start to analyze all of our creative. So what I'm doing right now is all I have is a filter of ad delivery active. So this is not everything. It's just kind of what's active as of right now in an account. And doesn't even really matter what the account is. We have like $8,000 in spend. And this is the reason why we start here from all active ads in the last 30 days. We're going to go and move it down to the last 7 days and give you the reasons why and all that kind of stuff and track the trends and the shifting of the ad spend, yada, yada, yada. But when you're looking at things as a whole, you have to say, okay, if I spent $8,000 on Meta and if I close my eyes and as the CMO of a company, I should say I spent $8,000 and I know the products that I spent it on. That's the first thing that you have to do in your brain as the media buyer. Because what that will do is tell you what the majority of the users currently in your pixel are being targeted with what type and what messaging. So if I was a company that sells landscaping and I know that hardscaping is 50% of my top line revenue and landscaping, so hardscaping is like pavers and block walls and that kind of stuff, and landscaping is more like bushes and trees and grass and shrubbery. If 50% of my ad spend is hardscaping, but only like 10% of my ads is mowing lawns, I should be able, and that's my revenue, and that's what I'm trying to grow. I should be able to close my eyes and say, I've only spent $800 out of $8,000 on mowing lawns. And if you open your eyes and that's wrong, there's a big issue. So that's kind of how we have to take a look at this is if you have a campaign and the default that we're used to is what's performing, you're not in control. At that point in time, you're like, how did Meta make me look good or bad today? That's kind of what we're doing. We almost like roll the dice with a lottery ticket rather than a purposeful spend amount tracking specific type of engagement. And that's where things get a little bit more interesting. So if we did that kind of like an exercise yesterday, we're looking at performance, and this is not an account that's doing poorly at all by any means, but we're trying to get really aligned. Exactly right. It's growing really well. We're just trying to get aligned on, are we spending the appropriate amount of spend on the correct ads for the audience we're trying to attract for the purpose of achieving the top line goal.
Right.
And that is a blueprint that you're looking at, because if you have a high ad spend globally on a product, typically you're going to have the most amount of your sales on that product.
Right.
So it is more so high ad spend dictates the future of your company. And if you're saying, I wonder what we spent a lot of money on, you're coming into your own management that is only built by you. You are in 100% control, technically saying, I wonder what my company is going to turn into tomorrow. That's a scary way to wake up. So that's the type of mindset that we have to have going into Andromeda and Gem is now, what is the audience telling me they like? Not what performed this week. We have to start to break down the barriers.
Force performance on. Right.
And we break down the barrier between.
Is it hardscaping versus landscaping, to your original analogy?
Exactly right. Is it spending and achieving the goal I wanted to achieve to my business goal rather than the CPA inside of Meta that week? Right. Exactly right.
And of course, with every business, and I know this business really well, there's always internal discussions and, launches and allocations and
drops,
departmental stuff that you're dealing with. So let's set all of that aside. Let's just use this as an example of, all right, we're looking at this with fresh eyes. Forget all that stuff. We realize that business is complex and it's made of people that have different agendas and different things that they want for the company, so forth and so on. So we're going to set that all aside right now, but just looking at pure performance.
Exactly right. And what's funny is spend dictates performance more than anything else. And I honestly, I understand that now more than anything, that MMM is actually the multimedia mix modeling, and where that multimedia mix modeling is allocated not only by channel, but also the product / service with the creative is actually probably the biggest lever that anybody could ever pull. And for just a small example as to how rising tides floats all ships, there was a time period this last week that someone that essentially kind of watched the video that we were producing sort of tried to do it on their own a bit. And it didn't necessarily fail in terms of the top line performance, but it failed on volume. So just I'll give you this 2-second example. This is a company that still uses Northbeam, so that's how we're just looking at an MMM perspective from the top line. Mm-hmm. And what was funny is like everything is tanking. We swapped over to feeder strategy, and everything started to die off. And I was like, well, let's pause there when we say die off, because this is actually kind of interesting. The only thing that was changed is they went from one big campaign. They've reduced the ad spend in that big campaign like by 30-40%, and then pushed it into new campaigns. I was like, don't do that. Like, feeder strategy is designed to keep your main campaign high spend and protected, and you put incremental ad spend on top to steer it further into a growth direction. And they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But what's funny about this is the only thing that was changed between January 7th and January 13th was the ad spend was decreased by 30%. It didn't get any more or less efficient. Technically, your e-commerce conversion rate actually went up by 2%. So this here, as an example, is not this is doing worse. This is spend allocation was pulled out of these ads and pushed into those ads. And those ads versus these ads did approximately the same. 5% difference when you're talking about $600K in revenue a week is actually fairly stable. But you can see that everything started to tank down after that. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the reasons why when you take a look inside of a campaign structure like this, we can't say, okay, what's the CPA and how many conversions did we get? And, this ad got that CPA, that ad got, oh, that's a bad CPA. It's like, well, not necessarily. What if they were coming through and actually purchasing on Amazon? Mm-hmm. Oh, right. Well, okay. So that can't go into Meta. Well, I mean, we can't ignore the 230 out of 600 grand. That's like 40%. Like, don't ignore that. And you can't judge that by in-platform metrics.
At 240 NCAC over on the other side for this particular product would be very bad. However, if you're looking at it in the context of how's the business doing overall, we were on an earlier call earlier this week where things in Amazon are looking really good. Right. And they're overspending on Amazon. So it doesn't look quite as good, but it's getting all the credit for all the stuff that we're doing on the Meta side.
Exactly. Now you even double down on the fact that spend is more important than what the in-platform metrics are, because that also affects things like your email, your Amazon, your LTV, depending upon the type of product, because the ad spend is on the wrong product with low LTV or low AOV, et cetera. 100%. But if we look at yesterday, we said, I'm like, hey, change it all back, but then add feeder strategy. Now watch this. This is where I think is also really important. Look at all of the metrics in the revenue column yesterday.
And this is, by the way, I know we didn't talk about this one before. Yeah. So feeder strategy for Meta or feeder strategy for Google?
Feeder strategy for Meta.
For Meta. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, what's funny about this is after they just swapped everything back and started feeder strategy, they still have a low spend of 15.9, but now everything is kind of, heading up. Yep. So once they just started putting ad spend toward the right ad inside of Meta, do you see how the entire column that used to be red for the entire last week, now yesterday, the entire column is green except for like discount site that didn't really track anything before.
I was wondering why you were only showing January 13th and that other one. I'm like, all right, what is he revealing here? Okay, go ahead.
That was actually the same people. So it was like, they're like, hey, we changed everything and everything's going down. All they did, though, is they changed the amount of ad spend on the ads in Meta and killed AppLovin, killed Amazon, killed Google, killed basically everything, because the ad spend shifted to a different group of ads in Meta and killed the entire company. Then yesterday, they shifted ad spend back into those ads and everything came back. Now the top line is growing. Facebook is growing. AppLovin is growing. Amazon is growing. Google is growing. So ad spend to a specific group of ads will affect all channels, because if you just look at the law of averages, well, 8,000 out of 12,000 come from that group. So yeah, that's 66% of all of your traffic. Protect it. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're looking at today, is that ad spend on ads affect way more than obviously your cost per result inside of the platform. So here's what we want to do first. Go ahead and remove the cost per result. Go ahead and remove the results. You can kind of remove
like the action, is what you're saying.
Exactly. You are now blind to what worked in the traditional, now incorrect sense.
You won't fall into that trap of pausing ads that you shouldn't be pausing when you're not really looking at the big picture.
Right. So once you remove the conversion metrics, funny enough, once you take out the conversions,
the only thing that used to matter. Now you're saying pull that out. That doesn't even matter. It's almost like we've become like a programmatic media buyer over here. Anyway.
I know. Trust me, likes and comments are the future.
Trust me, fine. That's right.
You know what's sad is likes and comments.
Likes and comments. Oh my God! Like,
right?
Remember that? Like we first started with
2015.
before conversion track. There was a time when there was no conversion tracking. Remember that? I don't know if you were advertising.
I don't even think I think that was before my time. I think I started in 2015 is when I started Meta.
Yeah, it was literally like likes, comments, shares. That's how you measure effectiveness.
Do you want to know how funny this stupid thing is? We went from likes, comments, and shares as like the main thing, and then it was like now like you got hook rate and click the rate. Now you got cost per conversion. Then we kind of went back all the way to like happy import, first click new customers, and now we're right back into likes, comments, and shares
because it means engagement.
Right now they're looked at it in a different light, but history repeats itself.
That years. I'm like, that's so funny.
I know, right?
But it is like all marketing is like full circle in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, people haven't bought something differently in their mind over 100 years. Like what used to be a poster walking by, a shop in the 1700s is now the same poster just on a Meta feed. It's the same thing.
Or just like, a product name like painted on the side of a brick building in Brooklyn was just in like a month ago. I was like, wow, there's like an old advertisement on this building in this warehouse district.
Right. Yeah. It used to be like the red brick would have like the logo of like the Walgreens in the early 1900s.
Exactly. They were selling cigars too, which is like, never in a million years did you get that one by.
All it is, they just pulled it off the building and stuck it on a city bus. Now we're like, ta-da, marketing.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Exactly right though. But it's around themes. And that's kind of what we're going to be starting to grow into is, okay, so once we remove the conversion metrics, now what's the next thing that we look at? Well, let's look at spend descending, because that's how Andromeda and Gem are agreeing that these ads are having a good impact in the marketplace based on everything, likes, comments, obviously reach and frequency, and then you have your cost per results and the amount of results, and then you also have like your hook rates and click the rates that are going to be earning and reallocating spend and reshifting the narrative between all of the sequencing that the ads have. So it's a live moving ecosystem, but because it is a live moving ecosystem, becomes much more harder to control, which means we have to be much more diligent and restrictive on what we want to show. So you get that double-edged sword. If spend can go anywhere, it's almost like a dog on a leash. A dog is going to go anywhere. But if you give it a 20-foot rope to a leash, it can only go 20 feet. Like that's the methodology that we now have with our ad spend and our creative. Mm-hmm. Do we want to have 100 ads, say 100 different things with $1 each for $100 a day? I don't think anybody would agree that is the optimal setup. Yeah. But in the same thought process, sometimes we say, well, yeah, we don't have 100 ads and $100. We have 70 ads and $2,500. It's like, well, that's a little bit better, but that's still pretty wide, right? Like that's a fairly stretched thin budget when you're talking about, well, how many themes and products are we sharing with just that simple $2,500? So we start looking at this. After looking at the last 7 days, I like to start with a 7-day period because that is the highest amount of new, warm, and buyer traffic that you can see. 30-day view, people 10 to 20 to 30 days ago probably have already bought if your sales cycle is, let's say, 10 days. Now, if you have a 30-day sales cycle, yes, you can go out more like 60 days, but you have to look at your look back time period and what messaging delivered what result based on how much you spend in that time, in that sales cycle. So your sales cycles are of 7 days. Well, after 28 days, you've gone through 4 sales cycles of the general population. You should have some consistency. That's why we don't just tinker every other day and turn things on and off based on the last view. This is where CPA is now removed. You can't do that anymore. It's gone. It actually has to force your mind into thinking not just what was last seen before the click, but what was the group of messaging that was seen first, or at least seen most often. So we start to look at things in a little bit different light, and we say, okay, let's try to find some similarities here. We have a Chameleon coffee mug, then we have a food jar. Okay, then we have a Chameleon water bottle, and then we have a Chameleon coffee cup, and then we have another Chameleon. This one is a non-Chameleon water bottle, but it's a partnership. And then we look at a kids snack, and then we kind of see that it starts to break off into like the onesie twosies. So there is a theme here in the last 7 days that we're seeing, which out of 70 ads, if we look at the top 3, what are the top 3 ads? We have a Chameleon coffee, then we have a food jar, then we have a Chameleon water bottle. Okay, so 2 of the 3 ads are about the Chameleon style of either food jar or sorry, of water bottle or coffee. But the Chameleon design is new and exciting. It's really cool looking. It looks kind of like cotton candy. It's exciting. Kids
3
probably
out of
love
4, if you're going into the 4th one. So
Yep.
to make your case even more.
Exactly. I was going to say the first 3 is you got the Chameleon and the food jar and the Chameleon.
Yep.
The top 4, you still have Chameleon, food jar, Chameleon. The top 5, well, if you look at the DPA catalog, that's usually going to be shown more often. I could probably guess it's going to be the same as the top 4 because it kind of has to be because it's remarketing. Right. So now we're going to have your Chameleon and food jar in the top 5. Now, after the top 5, you get like a partnership post, which is more like, the influencer. Then we have like a snack cup and some product iterations and a catalog and accessories. Okay, so we have a top 5. Now, of the top 5, let's look at the Chameleons. So because we know the Chameleon has a really good impact.
You're looking at themes, commonalities and themes in order to say, okay, this is what the market is gearing towards. This is what the market likes. So got it.
And if you look at the top 5, and let me do this here. If we start to look at the top 5 comparison to the spend, so we know we have $2,400 and 5, 10, 15, 16. So 16 of the 24. So 1,600 of the 24 out of 70 ads are to the top. So if you look at 16 times 2, that's 32. This is basically 2/3 of all of our ad spend is on the top 5 ads out of 69.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a high amount of concentration, right? 2/3 of 70 is 5. Wow, that's a fat 5 when you're comparing it to the lower amount of allocation of ad spend. Okay, absolutely. So now we're starting to see the majority of people are seeing Chameleon and food jars. Now let's break it down a little bit just comparatively and say if we have to say ad delivery is active and the ad name contains, let's do this here. Chameleon contains any of. So if we look at our Chameleon here, now we can say, okay, this is $1,200 in Chameleon. We know that the top 2 ads here are within the top 5 ads of the entire account. Okay. And now we have $1,000 approximately out of $1,200 on basically these 2 ads, or at least, 1,000 or about 950 out of 1,200. Okay. So it's like 80%. Yeah. So 80% of our Chameleon, or 80% of our ad spend in the Chameleon style is split between coffee and water bottle. Okay. So what does this tell us? Well, let's look at some of the look at the hook rates and click-through rates. Now, if we look at the Chameleon, we have a 2.16 outbound click-through rate and an 18% hook rate average. So if we then look at just the video ads, so let's see how the video ads did as a whole, and we're starting to start to whittle down to all the Chameleon ads that are here. Let's look at the I can't whittle down to those. Unfortunately, I don't think it will allow me to filter to rows with a filter on it. But if we look at this 28, 20, 16, they're actually a little bit higher because that is a little bit off. So it's a 32 hook rate. And then we got to look at the hook rate here, which is 20. And then we have to look at the hook rate here, which is probably 19, 20. So 32, 20, 20, you got about a 25% hook rate. 25% hook rate in the ad engagement here, which is why is this not? There it goes. 25% hook rate is kind of like the healthy keep scale. So it's falling within that average. Now, what do we have to say is how much ad spend has this been delivered? If we have $3,000 in ads, do we want to have 70% of our ad spend globally be spent on Chameleon and have it be almost like a 50-50 between the coffee and the water bottle? Is that appropriate for what we're trying to achieve for this company? In my opinion, we could probably do this a little bit differently. We might be able to do this in a little bit of a different way. And let's start to look at the themes. So you have coffee here. So you got a coffee in the top one. Then you have a water bottle in the second one. And then you have a coffee in the third one. You have a water bottle in the fourth one. And then you have a coffee in the fifth one. So 3 out of the 5 are coffees when you're looking at ad spend descending. So coffee, Chameleon, that is about the highest performing ads that people are resonating with hook rate, with spend, with gem, with click-through rate. Right now, if we closed our eyes and did this all over again and looked at it right here, we can kind of see the same thing, which is ad spend descending. Yes, it does seem like the coffee and the Chameleon just kind of dominates everything if we're looking at all ads that have been on or off in the last 7 days. Like this is primarily most of what we're seeing. The ad spend is high, the click-through rates are above average, the hook rates are above goal. This is it. We have basically Chameleon water bottles, Chameleon coffee, and a tiny bit of food jar. Mm-hmm. Now, is food jars what we want to push? I don't know. I couldn't answer that right now. I know that we are pushing about 20% of all of our ad spend to food jars. Mm-hmm. So that's where we have to stop now. So we can say people really like the Chameleon. There's this 50-50 split between the Chameleon water bottle and the coffee, but coffee does spend a little bit more, have a little bit better hook rate, have a little bit better click-through rate. Let's produce more Chameleon coffee.
Chameleon coffee.
There you go. That is our iterative process. Those are the winners.